2014 Nissan Altima. Customers complaining about the check engine light on. They're also here for an oil change and a tire rotation. But the first thing I noticed with this Altima, and it's kind of typical with a lot of these 2.5 liters, is the way that it's running. It's running as if it has a misfire or as if the EGR valve was stuck open. If it had an EGR valve. Now, what I also noticed is that if you give it gas and hold it around 2,000 RPM, which is typically where the exhaust valve timing solenoid would kick in and retard the valve timing for the exhaust valves, so we can have like an EGR effect, it starts to smooth out every once in a while once it goes back down to idle. But right now, I believe that what we have is an exhaust valve timing solenoid that is sticking open, and we have too much valve overlap right now, EGR effect, and this is what it runs like. So let's verify that by running some DTCs, because we do have a check engine light on, and we'll look at our exhaust valve timing and see what we got. We should be at 0 at idle. So let's do that right now and go to the scanner. Okay, so how do I know that it's not a fuel pump? Low fuel pressure, lean condition. Typically, if the fuel pump is failing on these vehicles, or most vehicles, then you got a low fuel pressure issue. When you rev the engine, it doesn't want to rev. It's sluggish to rev, and that's not what I'm experiencing here. It revs up just fine. Customer's not complaining about any lack of power, just complaining about check engine light and running rough sometimes. So that's going to lead me away from the direction of a fuel pump, because they're not complaining about a lack of power. We're probably going to have a P0014, which would be multi-cylinder misfire or random misfire. And we may have an exhaust valve timing DTC in there as well. It doesn't always throw an exhaust valve timing DTC. Yep, that's what we got. See that? So, the bottom line is, if you have a 2.5 liter Nissan engine with over 50,000 miles on it, customer is a little lacking on their maintenance. Engine may be a little dirty, may not be a little dirty. I've seen them sticking before without a dirty engine, or a customer that's been taking care of it. Occasionally they do act up. But if you have that and you got some issues with running rough, check engine light on, no complaints about power, or sometimes it stalls. It may even stall out when you at idle because it gets stuck. The exhaust valve timing gets stuck in like maybe 20-degree position or something like that. That's where you need to head. That's the direction you need to head in. Exhaust valve timing, control bank 1. And I'll prove that it's not a power issue. Hopefully I can prove that it's not a power issue to the exhaust valve timing solenoid just by looking at scan data. So let's go to the data. We're gonna have to take this trigger off because that may start the recording process, and we don't want it to do that. So we're gonna go to, where are we gonna go? Intake solenoid. That is our control. That's telling us what the computer's telling it to do, and that's what it's actually doing, the valve timing for the intake. Now let's go to exhaust. Did I pass exhaust? There it is, exhaust valve timing. That's our timing. That's what we actually have. And this is, they put it as VTC, DTC, instead of keeping it with exhaust. And I don't know why they did that. It's stupid. So let's go here, check out our data, get a line graph going on. See, look, exhaust valve timing is stuck at 46 degrees. Line graph. We should be at 0 right now. So let's take this into the car. I'm going to rev it up a little bit and see if we can get our exhaust valve timing to drop back down. If we can get our exhaust valve timing to drop back down, that proves out power supply to the solenoid. And yeah, let's see if we can do that. We can maybe even tap on that solenoid to see if we can get it to come back down and get it to stick again. That'll prove our power supply. That'll prove control of that solenoid is capable by the computer. Even though I'm pretty confident that it just needs that solenoid. The only reason I don't go directly to it with my scope is because it's not the easiest thing to get to. Alright, that should work. Let's see if we can get it to do anything, because the DTC is there, it might not let us do anything. Yeah, it's got command. See if we can get it to unstick and then stick again. You can see our intake is working just fine. Let's try this. There we go, we got it to drop. Alright, so now let's see if we can get it to work again. Oh, now it doesn't want to activate. Oh, come on. Do something. May have to clear the DTCs. Why is our intake valve timing stuck at 10 degrees? We may have something more than a solenoid here. Or the scanner is lying, maybe, because when I revved it that time, it went up as it should. See, watch. Oh, but the timing didn't change. Oh, it went up a little bit. Let me clear the DTC and see what we got. What the fuck is going on here? So it's valve timing control. Let's print it first. Okay. Erase those DTCs. Okay, go back into data monitor. Of course it would do that. All right, so what do we need? Exhaust, intake, VCC duty, line graph. All right, so it went back down to 10. I think that was probably some type of a fail-safe mode. All right, so let's go and rev it, see if we can get our exhaust valve timing. See, look at that. It works. You're not getting stuck now. Oh, look at that sluggishness. Let's see if we can get it to get stuck. There, it's not even working right now. It's stuck. It's stuck closed. Look at that. It's being commanded, but it's not doing anything. The duty cycle is at 47%. Exhaust valve timing solenoid is not moving, so exhaust valve timing hasn't changed because the solenoid hasn't moved. But this section here proves out that my wiring is good because we got response here, even though it's not 100% mirrored because the solenoid is obviously failing. There it is, it's back online. Yep, and now it's back offline. All right, so I'm not worried about wiring. We're gonna go ahead and sell this guy some valve timing control solenoids. I like to sell all three of them at once because this is a dirty engine and I don't want it to come back. So there could be dirt stuck in the other two. There's a locking solenoid, there's an intake valve timing solenoid, and there's an exhaust valve timing solenoid. The locking solenoid is for cold starts. It advances the timing to 10 degrees and locks it there during cold startup under 145 degrees, I think it is, engine temperature. And it stays at 10 degrees. I guess it's just to bring the engine temperature up faster during cold startup. And then that solenoid disables, and then you can have full control of the intake valve timing solenoids. with the ECM, you know, by giving the gas and it advances the way it should, so on and so forth. All right, so let's go ahead and sell these some solenoids, and we will show you what we got afterwards, after the fact. The first VTC solenoid that we're going to swap out is the intermediate lock solenoid. This is the solenoid that locks the intake valve timing at 10 degrees during cold startup until the engine coolant reaches a certain temperature, which I think is around 140-ish degrees or so, but don't quote me on that. But after the engine reaches near full operating temperature, that solenoid releases and intake valve timing goes back to 0 plus or minus 1 or 2 degrees at idle. So the solenoid to the left is the valve timing control lock solenoid. This solenoid is activated during cold startup and it locks the intake valve timing at about 10 degrees plus or minus a degree or two. If you're watching scan data, you will most of the time see between 9 and 11 degrees of intake valve timing at idle until the engine reaches a good operating temperature. The valve timing control solenoid in the middle is the intake valve timing control solenoid. This solenoid is used to advance valve timing during acceleration to help improve performance and engine efficiency. You can test the operation of this solenoid by simply watching scan data and revving the engine past 2500 RPM quickly and making sure that the intake valve timing advances to anywhere from 10 to 30 degrees. At idle with a fully warmed up engine, you should see 0 degrees valve timing in both the intake and exhaust side while watching scan data for most Nissans except for newer Nissans that have the electronic motor controlled valve timing. The VTC solenoid to the right is the exhaust valve timing control solenoid. This solenoid is active while cruising at around 1800 to 2300 RPMs, give or take a little. These numbers may not be exact, so don't take these numbers as fact, but it's a roundabout range. You can test the operation of the exhaust valve timing control solenoid by holding the engine RPMs at about 1800 to 2100 RPM steady and watching the exhaust valve timing PID and scan data. You should see the exhaust valve timing at anywhere from 10 degrees to 30 degrees plus, depending on operating conditions. Don't get hung up on the actual numbers, but rather focus on its ability to change timing and return back to 0 as it should when the engine is at idle.
Coming.
right car. Yeah, this is the right car because it drove in like crap. I must have cleared the codes already. Oh, I did clear the codes because it wouldn't let me do any testing that I wanted to do, and we went into like a fail-safe mode, so I had to clear the DTCs. You guys saw me do that. All right, so let's clear this crap out, alphabetical order, and we're gonna go with intake this and intake that. Nope, that one and that one. Now we're gonna go back. I don't know why I didn't start with the E, because E comes before I. This one, we don't want that one. Now we're gonna go to VTC duty cycle. They put it all the way at the end because they're stupid. So, let's start the car up because we don't want the consult freezing up on us. Now we'll start it. Car's running. Cold engine. I should have checked the temperature. All right, so we're good. We're starting off at 10 degrees. It's locked at 10 degrees where it should be with a cold start. So we're gonna let this warm up a little bit. Let this engine reach operating temperature, and then it should that 10-degree lock will go away. Now you don't see any action on any of these solenoids because that third solenoid is the one that's doing the locking at 10 degrees, and I don't think there's a PID for that. There might be, I don't know. I'd have to double check, but I don't recall seeing a PID for that solenoid as far as duty cycle work. It's probably just going to be an on and off type thing. I don't think there would be a duty cycle for that one if it's just locking you at 10%. Not 10%, 10 degrees. So let's speed this process up a little bit. There we go, we reached operating temperature. All right, so now let's see if our exhaust is going to respond the way it should. So we're going to try and hold it at about 2,000 RPM, or a little less than 2,000 RPM, and you can see they're mirroring each other, which is good. We got 38% duty cycle, 30-something% duty cycle, and we got about 25 degrees of exhaust valve timing, 30 degrees of exhaust valve timing, and I'm holding it at about 1,900 RPM. On these Nissans, if you hold it at, I think it's between 1,600 RPM to 2,200 RPM, you can test the exhaust valve timing because that's when the that's when the exhaust valve timing is activated. The exhaust valve timing solenoid comes into play around that RPM. If you go higher than that, then it shuts off. See, let's see. I'm going higher and it shuts off. Well, it came back on. Yeah, it's working. It's almost a mirror image. I mean, right here we had a little bit of unresponsiveness, but I think that's just scan data. I'm not really too worried about that because it's not sticking. So I can go up and down, and there's never an instance where it's not working. That's what we want. We don't want it to be sticking. Up and down. Before, you could clearly see that it just wasn't responding. Oh, that's too much. Before, you could clearly see it wasn't responding at all, and now it's responding. Every single time it's responding now. Don't get too hung up in how much it opens. Just worry about the fact that it does open and that it does respond somewhat normally. Like if you were to see 35% valve timing duty control cycle, that bottom PID here, and you're only getting maybe 2 degrees, 3 degrees, then, you know, I'd say that's a problem. But if you get 10 degrees, 15 degrees, so on and so forth, then I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's working. I'm not sure why it responds that way, but this is what I see on all of them. It's never really consistent. Like the duty cycle, like at the beginning, like right around there, when I was holding it about 37%, I had like 25 degrees. And now it's you know, not as much, like 18, 17, 16. But it is responding and it is working. And the computer won't set a fault code because of that. The computer will only set a fault code if it just doesn't respond at all. And we got response every single time right now.